This is Goku's son, DBZ, and welcome back for a new Top 5 Fighters list. This time I'm counting down, in my opinion, at least for me personally, top 5 best fighting games of the 7th console generation. So with that said, first some honorable mentions, and for the first time, 2 dishonorable mentions. Some games I wasn't too pleased with for the most part, but with that said, first let's do the honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut. First up, of the honorable mentions, I'm sure most people would have this on their actual, well, probably most people forgot about this game. Now this is the online edition, this is the one I ended up getting, but I think this is an overlooked game from the 7th console generation. First honorable mention, Virtual Fighter 5 Online Edition. Of course, it was released also on the PS4, PS3, but I had it for the 360. Got it dirt cheap too. Got it for like $4 when I picked this up a few years ago. So yeah, it's a good game for collecting price, and it's a solid fighter all around. Just like any game, honestly, in the Virtual Fighter series. It's a shame we haven't gotten a Virtual Fighter 6. It's a criminally underrated 3D fighting series, in my opinion, and deserves more respect. But a solid entry, and let's just hope someday we get Virtual Fighter 6. But first honorable mention, Virtual Fighter 5. With that said, next of the honorable mentions, most people would have probably on their top 5 list. If top 10, this would be on the list, but it's top 5. So next up, honorable mention is Mortal Kombat, the reboot. Now, of course, this is the complete edition, which of course includes the extra DLC characters, includes of course the bonus characters, obviously like Kenshi, Rain, and Freddy Krueger, and of course play as Kratos, which is kind of cool. But with that said, still deserves an honorable mention at the very least. And seriously, if you have a Vita, I recommend picking it up for that. It's fun having it on the go, though it has more limitations, obviously. But this was a good way to reboot the franchise. Next honorable mention, most people would probably have it higher on their list, and some maybe wouldn't. But for me, it's deserving of an honorable mention, even though I wasn't as impressed with it as the first of the tag games, but honorable mention, Tekken Tag Tournament 2. Still a really solid game overall, and I do enjoy the fact you can play with Jinpachi in the game is pretty awesome in my opinion. It makes it quite fun. But, with that said, still not nearly as good as Tekken Tag 1. Which of course I prefer the HD, but still it's a good Tekken game nevertheless. And good honorable mention. Last of the honorable mentions list was the first, of course, of 2 games so far from NetherRealm Studios, and in my opinion, one of the best story modes, hands down, of any fine game ever. Last honorable mention is the original Injustice Gods Among Us, which is superb comic, superb video game, and I actually really like Injustice Gods Among Us. Of course, I did a playthrough story mode when I got a digital copy of this on PS4. But still, Injustice 1, a great story mode, great storytelling all around, and maybe my favorite story mode of any of the NetherRealm games so far. Though it's up there with MKX's story mode, which I really love. Still, an incredible game. Love the DLC characters and everything in this as well. 2 dishonorable mentions though now. It is true this game is kind of responsible for the reboot, but it was also the last game done by Midway. And yeah, dishonorable mention, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. I don't hate it as much as some people, but still, it's got a lot of flaws in it as a fighting game for the most part. Though it would be really the style and the introduction to obviously story modes in the future So you could tell there was a lot of elements that would pave the way for really good games from future NetherRealm, but still, overall as a game, it's pretty clunky. It has a lot of issues overall, I feel. This is a game, gameplay-wise, for the most part, is good, but I hate the overall mechanics of the game. I'm just not a big fan of the clunky control scheme that they chose to go with Soul Calibur 5. It is easily my least favorite in the Soul Calibur franchise as a whole. I feel it's the weakest. I will say, though, I actually dig the redesign of Nightmare in the game. I do like that much. But man, did Nightmare become way overpowered and cheap as hell at that. But that's the last dishonorable mention. Now let's get to the good stuff, to the top 5. So with that said, first number 5, and it's an anime fighter, one I wasn't introduced to until about 3 years ago now. Thanks to actually somebody on one of my YouTube videos recommended me check out this game, and I want to say thank you to that person. If they still watch any of my videos, I do appreciate your recommendation. I ended up, of course, more recently in future, I may do some future story mode playthroughs of the game on the more updated version, but number 5 favorite fighting game of the 7th console generation, Under Night in Birth, in my opinion, is a criminally underrated fighting game franchise easily. It is probably overall my favorite anime fighting game franchise. I know with some people, of course, like Maximilian Dude is a big uber fan of, obviously, the Guilty Gear series, which has a lot of complexities, mechanically speaking, but this game can match, in my opinion, easily any of the mechanics of Guilty Gear. It has just as much complexity, but it's no surprise, because Arc System did work on this series, so that's no surprise. Plus, some of these characters are also in BlazBlue Tag Battle. And I'm happy to see this game finally made it to EVO this year, 2019. It's about time that this series finally gets some representation at Evolution. It's about bloody time. All I want to say is this is a criminally underrated fighting game. If you've never played it, or you're iffy about anime fighters, give it a shot. I've never been the biggest anime fighter fan for a long time. This was a game that really got me to check out and willing to open up to other anime fighters. So with that, I have nothing but respect for Under Night in Birth. Number 4, I think, is a criminally underrated and somewhat overly hated game. Yeah, some of the mechanics and some of the things Capcom did were not the best idea, but nevertheless, it doesn't make up for it being a blast, a lot of fun, and I still play off and on to this day, like 7 years later. Coming at number 4 favorite game of the 7th console generation, Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Easily an incredible fighting game. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the art design, especially of the Tekken characters, but nevertheless, I do dig the Tekken gameplay mechanic, or Street Fighter game mechanics used with Tekken characters. It's unique. It gives it a very refreshing new feel. Plus, the fact that I can have one of the most badass teams ever imaginable, Ogre and Akuma together. Come on, you can't go wrong. Akuma and Ogre together. Or having something like Akuma and Kazuya. Or whatever other possible combinations. Doesn't change the fact, as a big fan of both Street Fighter and Tekken, I have nothing but respect for this game, and I'm still will defend this game, no matter what, to anyone. It is a criminally underrated fine game, and really, if you've never played it, please do yourself service. Play this either on the 360, on the PS3, or the Vita. It's on all those platforms. Coming in at number 3, I feel the best 3D fighter of previous console generation of the 7th, is Dead or Alive 5. This is actually pretty much tied for being my second favorite Dead or Alive game with Dead or Alive 2. Though I played more or less majority the regular version on the PS3, though Ultimate is the best way to go if you want to buy it for previous gen, because you gain a lot more DLC characters in the Ultimate version, though the best version is last round, obviously on current gen consoles, but still, if you want for last gen, because being cheaper, you're going to get a lot more content, a lot more DLC characters, and more Virtual Fighter characters. That's the thing. Now, if you want to play Virtual Fighter characters, you're more or less going to have to play Dead or Alive for the Virtual Fighter characters. With that said, deserves definitely third place. Coming in second, though I've bought it on the 360 and also, of course, the PS3 and also 3D version for the 3DS. For me, is easily my favorite version of Street Fighter 4. Coming in second place, Street Fighter 4, or rather Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. Most people always choose, obviously, Ultra Street Fighter 4 because it's the ultimate version with all the DLC characters. It may not have all the DLC characters, but for the most part, I just like and prefer the feel of Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. There's no explanation, really. I can't really explain why I love this game so much, why it's my favorite version, but nevertheless, Street Fighter 4 is pretty much, I would say, maybe my third favorite Street Fighter game in the whole franchise. So that's in quite a bit. Still, an incredible game. You cannot underhand or underestimate or anything the importance that Street Fighter 4 had on previous gen to help bring in this new fighting renaissance we're having. Coming at number 1, you hear music in the background. Again, surprise, surprise. Coming at number 1, favorite fighting game of the last console generation, Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Get ready to knock this off. I'll see you next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.